Easy now. Papa got things making headlines.
Come down. Ooh, you make my high come down. Always tripping when you come around. I'ma have to cut you off, like right now. You see, I don't want to drive me. You can say that for your mama. Maybe you should smoke some. Me try the marijuana. I was never you good. The vibe was straight. Showed you a couple of things and they ain't finna change. I treated you right. Everything was a gift from a time to your bag and the color on your lip. Yeah, you plenty of
Welcome to the Seahawks Man-to-Man podcast, powered by The Athletic. Shout out to the company. My name is Michael Sean Dugar. You guys know where to follow me on whatever that app is called that Elon Musk is running these days. My @ name has not changed, @ Mike Dugar. That is MikeDugar. Shout out to everyone who likes, listens to, watches, subscribes to our YouTube channel. Seahawks Man-to-Man is the name of the channel. Man, the number 2 man on YouTube. We appreciate the love and support that you guys show us on our post-game episodes and on our Standout Plays of the Week segment that we do as a YouTube exclusive. So go ahead and subscribe and you'll get that to you every week. Chris, go ahead and talk to him.
What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Christopher Kidd. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at CKIDD206, and that is CKid206. Woo!
Yeah, Chris, today was not good. Well, it wasn't good football day. I had a fine Thanksgiving. I don't know how yours was, but yeah, it was good.
It was good, man. Had good food. Watched the game solo in my cousin's room because I was out, obviously, with the fam, and enjoyed the Seahawks getting stuffed.
Yeah, no, it was pretty bad. So we're coming to you guys. We're still up late after the Seahawks lost to the 49ers. On Thursday night on Thanksgiving with a chance at first place on the line. The Seahawks lost. What was the final? 31-13, I believe was the final. It was one of those games where it wasn't as close as the score suggests. The Niners dominated the Seahawks again. The Niners look like a championship contender. The Seahawks look like a team that it'd be like a pesky wild card team that probably bows out in the first round, just like last year, just like 2018. That didn't happen in 2019, but they were in essence the same type of team. They just ran into a bad Eagles team that had a 50-year-old Josh McCown at backup quarterback after they knocked Wentz out. So we're seeing kind of a pattern here. 2020, one and done. So yeah, that's what it looked like today. It was an overall beatdown. And usually this is behind the scenes where we get into our actual dissecting the game segment. Usually, Chris will remind me after the final kick, or the final whistle, say, "Hey, man, make sure you remember to ask the listeners for some Twitter questions." Usually I write my story, send it to my editor. It usually takes me a couple hours after game time, and then I'll send the tweet out that you guys usually respond to, and then I'll read the questions, and me and Chris will go over them on my way home, and then we do the show. Today, I was like, it's Thanksgiving. People might go to sleep. So I was like, while I'm waiting for the locker room to open, why don't I just send it out now before Chris can even remind me I'm on it? I got it. So I sent it out probably like 2 hours earlier than usual.
Oh, yeah. I got the notification. I said, we got 50 and it's only been 12 minutes. What the hell?
So I never checked the notification because I just send the tweet out and then I go, to my work, press conferences, interviews and everything. And then, after the show or I send my story later. Get home, like, all right, Chris, let's just go through the questions while I drive home. Chris is like, we got 90 questions. I said, oh, Lord. I said, I text you back. I forget I said, Jesus. That's what it was. I said, Jesus. I was like, oh, my goodness. That's what happens when I guess we get a primetime game. They get smoked. And I remember to send the question or the solicitation of the questions out a couple hours earlier. So let's give all that background to say today and tonight, this show is all about your questions. You guys got so many. They are very good ones. We are going to spend this time diving into everything that you guys want to know about your team that has lost 3 or 4 and got his butt whooped again by its division rival. So without further ado, Chris, let's do it.
Yeah, man, we got
we're not going to answer all 90, by the way.
Yeah,
we're not going to do that.
I don't think the podcast would ever end. We might set a record for the longest podcast ever if we try to answer 90 of them. The good news is a lot of them focus in on Shane Waldron, play calling, some Geno, Pete Carroll. So we did our best here, and we grabbed a bunch of really good ones. And we're going to start off. This one is from Abraham Newelt at Yo Bro. the Hawks made a lot of moves in the offseason to close the gap with the 49ers, but based on Thursday night's game, not close. How do you guys see this changing over the next few seasons?
I almost thought that question was from Abe Lucas when you started reading that. I was
Oh,
like,
my
wait.
bad.
Oh well, I'll actually say this on air. I won't say the player, but I was interviewing a player during the week, and after I talked to him, he was like, "You got that talk show, huh?" And I was like, "What is he talking about?" I was like, "Oh, you mean a podcast?" He called it a talk show. I thought that was funny. And he was like, "Yo, man, you do it with your partner Chris." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." He's like, "Oh man, I peeped that, man. Tell him I said what up." I forgot to tell you that this week. I'll tell you the player after we're done. But so it's cool. So they are paying attention, but that question is not for
I
me.
figured we might get some spin, and that's why I'm trying to be very careful on how I critique players. Because if they're watching, they could easily be like, A, flame my ass on Twitter, which I've seen people that's happened to, or B, pull up on Mike and threaten Mike, and Mike's like, "Hey, yo, so pull me over," and it's like, if you don't tell your boy to A, B, and C, it's gonna be a problem. So yeah, it's good that when players do see our content, A, they at least respect it, and B, I guess that's all that matters. They respect it.
Yeah,
If
they respect it. I don't even gotta like it. Just respect the craft. Yeah.
if they respect it, that means the opinion that I'm giving is not egregious. It has some weight. It's
Yeah.
different when they don't respect the opinion, and now you're just talking because now you're just breathing hot air, and hot air
Correct.
gets you nowhere. But my bad, Mike. Back to the
No,
question.
that's good. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's good that we at least are respected, even if they disagree with the opinions. I
Yeah,
was nervous when he was like, "You got that talk show, huh?" I was like, "Oh, damn, what do we say?" In my head, I was like, "Oh, damn." It was just me
this
and him
might
in
be
the locker room too. I was nervous, but he was not on that type of time. Anyway, to get to Abe's question, not Abe Lucas's question, by the way. I wanted to start with this because this was what I felt was the biggest takeaway from the game is that the Seahawks not only lost to the 49ers in this manner, a manner in which we have seen before, they lost after making a lot of changes in the offseason, both to their coaching staff, to their scheme, to their roster, to not have this happen, to not have this exact thing happen. Now, obviously, they didn't do all these changes with, hey, we got to make sure we beat the 49ers with this. It's not that simple. But at the same time, that you can't ignore how their season ended. Whoever ends your season, if it ends in the playoffs, usually, whoever ends your season, you definitely want to measure yourself against them. Like, why couldn't we go further? What went wrong so we couldn't beat such and such? Whether it was the Rams in 2020, the Cowboys in 2018, the Packers in 2019. Like, why could, I think it was the Falcons in 2016. Why can't we go further? Sometimes it's something like, hey, Earl Thomas broke his leg. So now we're not as good. That just kind of happened. That's what happened in 2016. And there's sometimes that happens. Sometimes you fire a coach or whatever. But definitely your last loss it weighs on you, particularly when that was the third time they lost to them. So, Chris, let's see if we can go through all the big changes made. So they changed the entire D-line, right? So they changed, like the last time they played the Niners, their D-line was what? Chenna, Bruce Irvin, Al Woods, Quentin Jefferson, Shelby Harris, Poona Ford. Today, it's I got it right in front of me. So we got DT, Leonard Williams, Jaron Reed, Draymond Jones, Boye Mafe, Derek Hall, Mario Edwards, Miles Adams, and they didn't play Frank. So basically, you got a whole new D line. You changed that so you could be more dynamic up front. They changed their linebackers out. You got Bobby and Jordan instead of at least in the playoff game last year, it was Tanner and Cody Barton. You changed out your DBs. So instead of Mike Jack, we'll get to the switch with Mike Jack and Reek later, but instead of Mike Jack and Ryan Neal, you're out there with Devin Witherspoon, Julian Love. You got Jamal Adams, Trey Brown. Like they did this is just the defense. The defense did the most changes. What else did they do? Trade for Leonard Williams.
You mentioned that. You put there. They got Mario Edwards. Did you say that?
Yep, got Mario Edwards. They tweaked their scheme. They hired a pass rush specialist. What else did they? Drafted JSN with a first round pick to help the offense. Like all these changes made, and this was no better. Even if you don't say it's worse, I would say this was worse than the playoff loss. But even if you don't think it was worse, Chris, it was no better. And that is the most alarming part. 10 months or however many months removed they are from that loss in January and those 3 losses last season, they looked, even if they may be on paper, they looked no better against their division rival on Thursday night.
The one thing that I always go back to, and I'm sure you remember this, and I'm sure listeners have heard this from me 1,000 times, but Pete Carroll's comments after that loss, we got to get better defensively up front. And the biggest thing was obviously getting after Brock Purdy, putting pressure on him because the Seahawks in the playoffs lost 41-23. So Brock had time. That wasn't an issue. They were able to run the football, and again, when you can run the football effectively, it opens up everything else you want to do. Everything. How many times did they run the reverse or a jet sweep to Debo, and he's getting 5+ yards, not even getting touched until he gets 8 yards down the field. And not to mention, Debo is already a load. Pause. I guess that came out weird, but
No, that's
he's
fine.
he's already a problem, and he's picked up speed and has 8 yards on you. I remember Collinsworth on the broadcast. He said, "Man, how many times has Debo just been hit and he hasn't been brought down?" I said, "Damn, that's a good ass point. How many times has Debo just been hit and has not been tackled? Like he just gets stood up by 4 or 5 Seahawks and he's not brought down." And that's to the point of that's how wide open lanes were. That's how clean the Niners were in the run game. And you saw that in real time. And they didn't improve on that point. And I'm bringing that up because that's one area that Pete Carroll was adamant about improving was the defensive line and making sure that they get pressure on the quarterback, make them uncomfortable, and they stuff the run. And they had so let's think about it, right? The Baltimore Ravens, a really good run offense. They damn near ran for 300 yards. They benched Lamar Jackson late in the game. And then they lose last week. Then they follow up with another loss this week against not this week, but on Thursday Night Football, prime time, against a team that's balanced and they love to run the football. And the Niners did whatever they wanted to do. And we mentioned this 4-game stretch that they have coming up. Man, all these teams can do what? They can run the football effectively. And although I think the
Mhm.
Eagles do it a little differently where they can honestly do whatever they want. If they want to throw it on you, they can do that too. 3 out of these 4 games, they're not afraid to run the football. Tony Pollard and that Dallas Cowboys O-line, they are licking their chops saying, yeah, if we can get physical and run stretch plays, get up the middle in those inside zones, get to the linebackers and move Bobby and Jordan Brooks out the way, that's 5-7 yards a pop. And if you can do that, that just makes it that much more of a challenge if you're on defense to slow a team down. And that's what you saw Thursday night against the 49ers. They came out running effectively. CMC, he was dominant. He had 2 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken, and he just had a really effective night on the ground, and there was no stopping him. So to that Twitter question, the biggest problem is they didn't address what they said they needed to address, at least against these dominant football teams that were not these dominant football teams that are good at running the football. They didn't improve the way they wanted to. The good news is they'll face the Niners again. They have another chance, but they got another chainsaw coming in with the Dallas Cowboys, a team that again they can run the football. So it's going to be very important that they get back to the just fundamentals of making plays because there are times where they're there, they just don't make tackles. We have examples of that. So it's just unfortunate. You would expect this team on a Thursday night to show up and not want to get beat down as they did at home. Sure, you can make the excuse, yeah, they got beat on the road, but to come back to Seattle and have a game that poorly, I mean, sure, maybe if they all get a week rest, that changes things. But the Niners have the same schedule.
Yeah, and they had to travel.
That's another good point. So you know what? Let me just edit that out. But you guys get my point. So, let's move on to the next one, man. There's not much else I need to add there. This next one, it comes from Derek Richard. Effort, talent, or scheme. What's the biggest issue with the Seahawks compared to the Niners and the other top teams in the NFL?
Yeah, I think it's all of those things, particularly with the effort, and I would like effort slash the mindset, because when you watch the Niners, they have the type of swag that you want the Seahawks want to have, and that we've seen them have. Like, I don't know if you guys watch. I love watching the pregame speeches that they post on the team site. Like, they always usually tweet like video of Jamal Adams hyping up the DBs in particular. His is like really passionate. They post all of them usually on their like all access thing on YouTube. You guys should watch that when you get a chance. Watch our podcast first, but then watch that. But Jamal's just really like, it's impassioned. He encourages guys to have that swag, to be dominant, to be the best, to do what they do, and behave as if because they mamas are watching. And I don't know about you guys, but like, having my mom watching, that is the motivation I need right there to make sure that ain't nobody about to whoop me, in front of my mama. Like, beyond that, it reminds me, Chris, of a quote that Bruce Irvin gave last year. He's like, my kids are watching this. I ain't about to just let nobody manhandle me. My kids are watching. That's the same thing. Like that. It's the idea that like it's a mindset. That's why I say effort / mentality / mindset or whatever. That part I think is missing when they play these guys, because it's not missing all the time. They have it. They play with that. But I feel like that part is missing, and the Niners have it. The Niners have it when they come out the tunnel, for real. The Niners got the swaggiest entrance with Debo up front. They're led out the tunnel by a guy named Debo. They got the boombox. They got big old Trent Williams, who got probably the most swag in the league for an old lineman. Maybe him and Laramie Tunsil. I think that is is one thing that's lacking, a big part of it, because a lot of this is just pride. A lot of it, like tackling, some of it is like what the situation is. Sometimes you get tripped up, your cleat, whatever. The guy got the angle, the momentum, whatever. But a lot of tackling is just, I want to get this guy on the ground, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get this guy on the ground. Chasing the football, winning your one-on-one matchups. It's like, I'm not about to let this dude beat me on this particular rep. And the Niners have a lot of that. You really can feel that, Chris. You feel it all over the place. One place where I really feel it feels like when Charvarius Ward plays DK Metcalf. Man. I watch a good deal of the Niners, but it feels like, this is a good analogy. I figure if you guys follow the NFL, you'll kind of be aware of this one. When Marshawn Lattimore plays against Mike Evans, Marshawn Lattimore is suddenly Deion Sanders. Marshawn Lattimore is a very good corner. When he plays Mike Evans, he's the best corner of all time. Like, his numbers against Mike Evans, who's a Hall of Fame receiver, are like the best you'll ever see. Charvarius Ward is very solid. When he plays DK, you just get this sense that he's like, I'm not about to let 14 catch nothing on me, which would made the playoff game so encouraging, because what did DK do? Cut a 50-yard bomb on his head, in the first half. And then after that, it was a lot of nothing. And I bring that, like, that I feel like is missing. The scheme stuff is kind of is what it is. We know what Pete Carroll is. We know what Kyle Shanahan does. We know how good they are after the catch. Like, they're gonna get, they do that against everybody. But yeah. I do feel like in these specific matchups, that swag, that effort, that attitude, I don't see a ton of attitude. Even today, didn't have the same juice, the same finger wagging after the pass breakups. Saw Jamal a little bit of it. Leonard Williams a little bit of it, and obviously it's easier to have that swag when you make plays, But
yep.
It didn't feel like it was there, and it didn't feel like it was there in the playoff game. It didn't feel like it was there in the Thursday night game last year. It certainly didn't feel like it was there in the week 2 matchup last year. It just doesn't feel like it's there. And it's, in particular, it doesn't feel like it's there from the start. Like, the Niners came out the gate like, we about to just pack these boys up, celebrate, go home and eat our turkey. Like, you could tell that was the attitude. I didn't need to interview nobody from the 49ers to feel that. And I do think in this little iteration of this rivalry, starting in 2022, that feels like it's what it is. One more thing, Chris, on that. You know what kind of makes me think about the mentality not being right either is, do you remember, we talked about this on the show, I believe, that part of the reason that guys said they got beat so bad in week 2 of last year was because they were still kind of on like an emotional hangover from
after Russ.
Win the Russ. I thought that, and I still think, I thought that was alarming. That is so alarming. Y'all was so hyped to beat Russ that you let a division opponent treat you like that. I still think that was alarming. That's huge. It's a huge issue. And I feel like that kind of set the tone for like one team being ready for the fight and the other team not being ready for the fight. And that's probably, Chris, where I think is the biggest the biggest gap because it ain't talent and scheme as much as it really is just the mindset. It feels like.
Yeah, gotta find a way to just have that confidence. It's easy to sit up here and say, "Oh yeah, we can beat these dudes," but to feel it, as you said with the Niners, everything they do, you feel like, damn, if I put on a uniform, I can go out there and make a play too. Like that's what they bring when they show up to the stadium. No matter where they play, they believe they can win every single freaking game. And then they go out and they try to do it. This next one comes from Morals Quandary. Where do the Seahawks go from here?
This is another good one. I love the combination of the Twitter name in this one with a moral quandary and then this like big picture philosophical question. I really do. I think that this is not even. I think we've mentioned the Deion Sanders. He's probably not the guy to go to for post game stuff because his post games be kind of wild. However, I do like one. I forget who they lost to, but this year he was just like, we gotta find out if our guys are in love with football, if they're in like with football. I feel like that was the gist of it. I forget what loss that was, but and I thought that was a valid thing. And I don't think this the love of the game issue that I would address if in Seattle, but I do think there's some scheme stuff they can clean up with some things. But I feel like again the bigger issue, Chris, is do you want to be champions? Like, do you really, really want to be a championship team and like feel what that looks like for 4 quarters and winning in situational football? Can you be better than can you be a championship team in the red zone? Can you be a championship team on third down? This is both sides. This is offense and defense. Can you be a championship team when your back's against the wall, when you're in a sudden change situation, or when you're down a couple scores, or when the momentum's on the other team's side? Can you flip it? Like, and I don't even think that that's a lot of scheme stuff, as much as I do think that is just a mindset. Like Geno talked about it a little bit today. He was like, it requires guys looking at themselves. Hold on, I'm gonna read this. I don't want to. I've been paraphrasing here. I got the quotes in front of me. I know it. He said, "There's a quote from Geno. He said, "What do you feel like?" The question was, "What do you feel like you guys need to do on offense to get the consistency that hasn't been there?" He said, "It kind of starts with every guy individually, really just looking at his own film, his own tape, looking himself in the mirror and say, what can I do to help the team? How can I be more consistent? How can I be more effective on a down-to-down basis and play better so we can score more points than we are right now?" And that's end quote. But then Geno goes on to say that it starts with him, which is good. Good accountability on Geno. But the first part is what feels relevant, Chris. It's not that much schemy stuff these guys can do. Everybody got to go home, watch their tape, and be like, what can I change? What reps did I lose? Make sure I don't lose none. Everyone's going to lose some reps. But Chris, I don't know if I've ever seen this many instances of guys just not being out schemed, just kind of being just overall outperformed, particularly in one-on-one situations.
Yeah, I hate to do this to our guy Jamal, but third and I want to say 7, and the Seahawks blitz, and it's one on one. George Kittle versus Jamal. Those are the plays that unfortunately Jamal just has to win. We all know George Kittle, great tight end, one of the best in the league, if not the best. But in that scenario, you need Jamal to come up and make a big play. While he covered it and was there, he wasn't able to get a pass breakup, which would have forced them. I think they were maybe in field goal range, if not a punt. So long story short, those are opportunities where guys just got to step up and make plays. I don't know how. I don't know. Maybe it comes down to just film study, and you read it perfectly. You just know this is coming, but that's where you have to make that play and get off the field. Third down defensively, we got to get off the field. Offensively, we got to stay on the field. And in those scenarios, Seahawks just weren't consistent enough on Thursday Night Football against the 49ers.
Yeah, but you can flip that on offense too. Guys got to win their blocks. Guys got
Yeah,
to go with the
man.
pass rush today. We ain't said boy Maffe's name in 2 weeks.
Yeah, it
Where
was.
is he at? It's just so much of football is just beat the guy in front of you, and it's just not happening when they play these guys.
I think he got in the backfield once, but he just didn't get the play.
The
He didn't get
fact
the
you're
catch.
not sure is, that's the issue. That's the issue today. So much of it is just beat. Do you want it more than a guy in front of you?
Yeah.
And there were so many instances of that today, whether it's penalties or just whatever.
No, you ain't lying. This next one comes from a familiar person. This is Chris Leeper at Rosebug_22. How bad does the season have to get that Seattle starts looking for another quarterback, someone to challenge Geno, who's not Drew Lock?
This is a fair question. I do think that what's up, Chris? You ask a lot of questions. Appreciate the love and support. I think that it has to be really obvious that the other pieces around the quarterback are doing their job, and it's like isolating his play. It's like we get a better guy in here, this will be better. And I do think that you can get a better guy in there, perhaps, but I don't know how much of the result would be better. There's just so many instances um, today. You know what? Should we do the third down thing now? We got the clips in here. We
Yeah,
do it now.
man.
Yeah, I feel like this is a good example. This is a good example of what I mean. So can you do the goal line one first, and before we
Yeah.
go to the third and 8? So you guys remember this sequence, right? It's right after the JSN no call, which was that was a bad call, and Gino alluded to it in the post game, and we all would agree that is a huge swing. It goes from that ball would have probably been on the 1 yard line. They probably just get it in. It's 24-17 with 4 minutes left in the third quarter. It's a whole new ball game, momentum, crowd going crazy, all that. Do I still think that the Niners win? Yes, I do. But either way, that it would be legit momentum swings. We've seen that. Anyway, it's third and goal. Very next play. Go ahead and run the clip. The Niners are showing and bringing a blitz. They bring it, right? And as you guys can see, Geno takes a sack. But as you watch this play, look at the middle of the field. There's nothing. You see Noah Fant. He runs a little cross that the safety is sitting on, and then JSN's running, looks like a whip route, coming back to the ball, which against a blitz that would take too long. Tyler is doing his thing on the one-on-one at the top of the screen. Looks like his route kind of long developing as well. DK's one-on-one with the corner that picked off Geno earlier, I believe, and Geno has nowhere to go. Right? I feel like we can all agree that this is probably not the best design, assuming everyone ran the right routes. We don't know if that's the case, but assuming everyone did, this is not the greatest design for this situation. They show blitz, so you can probably figure that the blitz is coming. At least you're not off guard by it. The dudes are right there. And then you kind of have you have routes that don't really help Geno unless he wants to just throw that fade ball to DK, which I wouldn't have been upset with. All right. Shane Waldron, the play caller, maybe he looks at that situation and says, hey, you know what? I got to do a better job putting my guys in position. All right. Very next drive, they face 3rd and 8. It's not on the goal line, but the down and distance is damn near the same, right? So what does he try to do? All right, they show the same look or a very similar look. They're showing a blitz. And what does Shane do? He has, again, assuming everyone's running the right routes, he has DK running smooth across Geno's face. And he has Tyler. I know this angle doesn't show it, but he has Tyler running another crosser. So he basically puts 2 dudes right in Geno's face, one high, an intermediate, one low. Gives him some options. Both throws would have been tight, but I use this as an example of like DK's route is blanketed, Tyler's route is blanketed, but it's an example of the guys trying to do the right thing and the quarterback not having great options. And as I said, you could put a better guy in there. But if everyone else is not doing their part, like one play we got, not good design. Like what was Mahomes going to do on that 3rd and 7 on the goal line, Chris? What would Mahomes have done? He went to the sack.
Yeah, been very tough. But actually,
Yeah.
if it was Travis Kelce, Mahomes probably would just threw it up instead of make a play. And I think that's
No, I'm saying, what would he have if he just swap him and Geno? No, you can't swap all the personnel. Just swap him and
no. I
Geno.
would maybe he has more confidence, and maybe he would throw it up. But likely he probably takes a sack just based on 11 weeks of seeing what's been happening. You're right. He probably
and
just
it like their offense is killing it either, for what it's worth. But that shows you how sometimes it's not even just like. Anyway, to go on to the next question before we do, I just think that it has to be a lot more obvious. Like I feel like based on the 90 plus questions we got about people who ain't Geno, you guys would also agree it ain't just him. This isn't the Jets or some other teams where it's very clear that the quarterback is the problem. Quarterback's part of it. He has to play way better. But if everyone else isn't doing their part, then the numbers will probably look a lot similar, and so will the film. If the play designs look like this, some of the routes look like this, and then the blocking looks awful, it won't matter if they got prime Joe Montana in there, you know?
This next one comes from Tanner Cockerill. Hope I'm saying that last name right. Why are the Seahawks so against running crossing routes on third down? And why do we watch all these other coaches attack the Seahawks' weaknesses, but it seems like the Seahawks can't do the same thing?
Yeah, they run crossers like we just shown. I know if you're listening, you ain't see it, but like I tweeted this too, those clips as well. But JSN's caught a couple crossers for first downs. Even on JSN's big catch, did they talk about this? Or they show it on the broadcast, Chris, on JSN's third down catch? DK is running smooth open in the middle of the field. So like they run them. So I'm gonna address it. Let's address the second part of that question, because I do think that is a bigger issue, because every defense has like holes in it, right? Like there's no perfect defense, whether you're playing man, zone, two high, one high, cover 3, cover 6, doesn't really matter what your base function is. You know, whether you're like a let them dink and dunk team, or you're like a blitz team like the Vikings, who are just like, we're about to just cover zero you to death, function at a high level. Like that has its drawbacks. Whether you're a team that's like, we'll make you do death by 1,000 paper cuts. Everything has flaws. The Seahawks seem to get their flaws addressed by the other team at a much more rapid rate. Not to say that they always get exposed. I think the defense's scheme is pretty fine. Guys are just not executing cleanly, particularly in the pass rush. But like we don't see the Seahawks offense taking advantage of those. Chris, let's see if we can name them all. But I feel like the Seahawks are really good at exposing a team's flaws if they play a lot of man, which they don't get a lot of. But when they do, I feel like they're generally good against man. And when they do come across those teams that play a lot of like do that blitzing cover zero stuff, they have a decent plan for it. The Detroit game last year comes to mind. Even how Geno played against the Giants last year. Wink Martindale's like a big blitz guy. They generally have a good feel for that. Other than that, when a team has a weakness, I just don't feel like they exploit it as well as other teams do against them. I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure why that is, though.
It's a strange one. It might have to involve you digging deeper and asking the right questions. What are teams doing that the Seahawks, for example, they got killed in the screen versus the Ravens, right? The last few weeks, what have they been really good at stopping? The screen. They haven't.
Yeah.
They have done a really good job of making sure when things feel a little easy, it's probably a screen coming. I think Jamal Adams blew up a screen on Thursday night against the Niners, and I think there was one more.
I think Leonard Williams blew one up as well.
Yes, Leonard Williams was there as well, and that just goes to the fact that players, man, this feels weird. Oh, you know what? A screen's probably coming, and what do? They react to it, and they make the play. Now they have to do that on every facet of the game. It has to be jet sweeps, for example. You know the Niners are going to do it at some point. You got to know that's coming. And unfortunately, they weren't able to pinpoint that on certain drives. And a lot of it had to do with because CMC, Christian McCaffrey, that is, was just doing whatever he wanted. So I think a lot of it has to do with maybe just being, man, how do I explain this? I think it has to do with just how the game is flowing. And you can't rely on, okay, I think this team's going to do that when they've been kicking your butt running the football. If you guess wrong, it could be a touchdown. So you want to stay sound. You want to do your job, but at the same time, there's got to be part of you that, okay, what we saw on film, we know what this team's going to do. If they ran it 4 straight times, there's going to be a huge 90% chance that they're going to run it again, but pay attention to the formation. Where's Debo coming from? Hell, on that Debo touchdown, Bobby is the nearest guy, and he's a second late. And that's all it took because Bobby went untouched. That play was, I know CMC was brought in motion, and then he basically sat there as if it was going to be maybe a pass play. But yeah, I remember Debo is a threat wherever he's out on the field, a backfield, lined up as a receiver. And those are just an instance where, yeah, CMC might be lined up elsewhere, but damn, this could be a really good chance they give the ball to Debo. And on that scenario, again, Bobby goes untouched, and Debo just walks into the end zone. So those are just little things that you got to key in on. And I'm sure when they do their film review on Friday or whenever they go back to the office and study the film, they take advantage of that and they'll be prepared for that when they play the Niners the second time.
Yeah, the offensive part of it, I think, is troubling as well. But I do think the real answer is they don't get enough plays because they suck on third down.
Mhm.
And then we'd have to. That's where I got to dive in. Just like, why aren't they figuring out teams on third down? It seems like teams are bringing the fight to them on third down, and on offense, they're just not responding well at all.
This next one comes from Runaway. It's Lubu. With all the offensive woes that the team is going through, particularly still on third down, does Shane Waldron have a future with this team next season?
Yeah, I wouldn't anticipate it at this rate. Like if you're bad on third down for multiple years with all of the talent that they have, even with the O-line issues, which I do think is legitimate, but when you do that, when you're bad situationally, when you're bad in the red zone, I mean, they've taken some really bad losses this year. Like remember the Seahawks used to just not lose by double digits? Remember that time? Now it's just like and they lose double digits in week one.
Don't even score a touchdown offensively? Like, that can't happen, man.
Yeah, like this game, it wasn't competitive offensively. They've had a couple games where they have just one touchdown. Ravens game, they had none. Like, so I think I would be surprised if it continues to go this way. Because just to be this bad on third down, and here's the thing that really troubles me on third down, beyond just not converting, obviously. It feels like, as we've discussed on the show, it's multiple things wrong. But one of the things that I would never want to see wrong on third down is guys not knowing what to do. And we've seen that quite a bit. I've had guys tell me it's like, yeah, one thing we got to get right on third down is just everybody getting the call, everybody being on the same page. I'm like, everybody getting the call? Is this phone tag? What you mean? Everybody should know to play. Like that's a communication thing. I don't know where the communication breaks down, but it shouldn't. Everybody should know to play. You look at that Ravens interception that we broke down. Tyler didn't know to play. Like now we know why he didn't know to play, but it's like he should know to play. Like, and that happens a lot. It happens with linemen. It feels like guys aren't on the same page with routes. It just feels like it's just off. And before we even get to the execution, how can guys execute if everybody doesn't know what they're supposed to be doing? And I feel like that probably goes to the guys who are in charge of making sure everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing. You know, starting with the coordinator to the position coach to the quarterback, and then so on the center up front. You know, so that part is what worries me, and that's where I would like look at a coaching thing because it's like, bro, if nothing else, we should just be on the same page. If our right guard gets blown up by their 3 technique, that kind of is what it is. Maybe we just get a new right guard. But if he don't even know that the aiming point on this is this is the micro IDing, or we didn't check to this run, or we didn't, you know what I'm saying? We didn't slid the protection this way. If he don't know, you know what I'm saying? I need the communication to be sharp. Like that's one. What I'm curious about with Shane though is he a package deal with Andy Dickerson as the O-line coach? Because remember they came together. Mike Solari was here. Then they booted Mike Solari, who I believe now works for the Cowboys. And they promoted Andy. So are like Shane and Andy a thing? So if you get rid of one, you have to get rid of the other. I don't really know how that would go, but at this rate, I really don't. If guys aren't even just going to be on the same page on the most important down of the game on third downs and in the red zone, I feel like you have to change the person who's in charge of the communication and the messaging.
Yeah. That's tough. Well, let's just keep it going because the next one is actually on Shane Waldron, and it's simple. Do you think Shane Waldron's going to make it through these next 3 weeks as the offensive coordinator? And
A
my bad, hang
mid-season
on. This one is from, I scrolled around. Let me pull up the name. This one is from C_teacher. And yeah, will Shane make it through these next 3 weeks if the offense continues the way it is?
Yeah, a mid-season firing would surprise me. And I think part of that is are Shane and Andy. I actually don't know if they are a package thing in that regard, you know. So they both came from the Rams together. Again, Andy got promoted. They got rid of Mike Solari. So I would be surprised by that. I would be surprised by that. However, we haven't seen Pete do that, but also we haven't seen the offense be this inconsistent and stagnant and just out of whack. It's just out of whack. And they can get in rhythm because they have good players. But yeah, I don't. Maybe Chris, if I had to put a percentage on it, probably put it like 5%. But I mean, if they go out and look like this against Dallas, then go out there and look like this again against the Niners, they've had a couple games against the Niners where they just don't really score anything. They didn't score any points against the Niners in week 2 last year. They scored against the Niners in the wild card game, but in the second half, their points were basically garbage time. They had one garbage time touchdown, I think, in the Thursday night game last year to Noah Fant when the game was basically over. Like, they're not moving the ball against these guys. And if that continues against multiple teams, that's tough. I would be surprised by a midseason firing. I think it would take probably what is this? They have 4 games, right? So they have Philly, Dallas, San Francisco twice. If they are under if they only score like 4 touchdowns in that whole stretch, which is possible, that would make me think you change something. At the same time, you'd be 6-8 probably in that scenario. I don't know how realistically the playoffs would be in that scenario. Probably still realistic because of how bad the NFC is, but I think it would take something like that where they only score like 4 touchdowns in 4 games over this stretch of really good teams.
This next one comes from Jared Westby. 4th and inches and a shotgun handoff. What are we doing?
Chris, this was one of the questions where I don't even know if we have an answer. We just want to complain with the rest of y'all. Because that was crazy. That was crazy.
We were talking off wax. I was like, bro, you guys are losing. Like, running the football is kind of out the window. Like, you're trying to score quickly, especially if you're trying to do an onside kick, get the ball back. Running the football defeats that purpose. You're trying to score a touchdown as fast as possible so you can get an onside kick, probably score another touchdown before the 2-minute warning. Like, all these things should be going through your head. To run on 4th and inches, to hand it off. And by the way, Geno can see that the entire 49ers defense is at the line of scrimmage. I'm audibling out of that so quickly to throw a quick pass, a slant to DK. That's just me in my head looking at it because I'm thinking, no way you guys are about to run it. I know you guys see the entire defensive unit just at the line of scrimmage, like, yeah, go ahead and run it. We know you're running it. And Madden, it's called commit to the run. You click Y, then you flick the right thumbstick down, and basically that just sells out, and you're going for the run no matter what. If the team is passing the football, it don't matter. You are blitzing at the running back. That's what the Niners did there. And you know what the Seahawks did? They ran the football. I can't make this up. I don't know why they would do that. It's 4th and inches. Throw the damn ball.
Particularly a shotgun run too.
Yeah, if you're gonna run it, at least just maybe tush push, try that, or just another QB sneak. But again, to my original point, you're losing the football game. The clock is ticking. You do realize that when you run the football and you don't get out of bounds, the clock is going to continue to tick. In this scenario, throw the football, get out of bounds. You're trying to score a touchdown. So that play to me was that was ball game. I mean, the game, they were losing regardless of if they scored on that drive or however you want to look at it. But at least in that scenario, you want to just give your team a chance to score. Throw the damn football. You don't have time to run it. There's just no point, in my opinion. There's just 0 point to say, let's just hand it off to Zach Charbonnet to get inches. Throw it.
Especially after how last game ended with the shotgun run to Zach. Just like, guys, that play takes too long to develop when you need to trying to pop something real quick. That takes too long.
I don't want to hear Pete on Friday's football show with the other station, and we just didn't block it the way we wanted to. Damn all that. Ain't no blocking need to go. No, it's 4th and inches. Throw that ball, try to score a touchdown immediately, not run it, hurry up. Wants 5 wide. No, just throw the football, guys. Just throw it.
Yeah, we don't really have an answer. We right there with y'all on that one. That was just, I watched that live. I was like, what was that? That's exactly what I said out loud. I said, what was that? That was bad.
Let's see. This next one, it comes from Alex Holden. It seems like with Geno, he gets sacked on a big 3rd down. It's almost any 3rd down for the most part. What's going on there that Geno gets sacked on every big 3rd down? Why is that the issue? Why does it feel that way?
Yeah, it feels that way because it happens quite a bit. I don't have his sack rate on third down in front of me. I can probably try and pull it up while I'm talking. But while I'm waiting on that to load, I just think the bigger issue is the Seahawks, and we've talked about this, and I know it's a very tricky balance when you're actually working for the team, but they call these plays as if the line's going to hold up. And I just don't, I feel like that's doing too much. Now, sometimes it feels like it's 3rd and 11. We don't have much options. Like sometimes you are just going to have to block a dude through multiple pass rush moves. Sometimes that just kind of is what it is. However, I feel like, and this is where I think the Eagles have really cracked the code because as Greg Olson talked about when he called last year's Super Bowl, it just changes the math so much. If on 3rd and 9, you really feel like you only need 7 because we about to tush push this bad boy and get the 2, or we only need 1 or just whatever. Now the Seahawks don't have the tush push. They've played around with it a little bit using DJ Dallas as the tush that they push, I guess in that scenario. But either way, I feel like when you are a team that's like, all right, we're really not about to get a ton of yak. We're a yak team, but it's not really coming on those gotta have it situations. We're just going to rely on our O-line and our drop back game. I just feel like that's acting in bad faith. You can't do that. Chris, I feel like a really good example today was, I think it was 3rd and 4. I don't remember what point in the game, but you guys will remember. Stone Forsythe is in. They're kind of right at the borderline of field goal range. And I think this is in the second half. And they do a regular drop back. And it's just like, you can tell on the drop back, they expected Stone to just hold up against Nick Bosa. And he gives up a sack. It's just like, Chris, I don't blame Stone Forsythe for giving up a sack against Nick Bosa. Now, Stone's in the NFL. He's, professional. It's his job to not give up a sack. But at the same time, it's Nick Bosa. He one-on-one. I could have, would you say? You said it right before the play happened. You were like, this is probably going to be a sack.
Yeah,
because you watch ball before and you KYP, you know your personnel. Like I feel like that play was damn near unfair to Stone.
Yeah, you gotta at
and to
least give him.
Geno.
You gotta give him a chip. Do something. You don't just Stone 1-on-1, 3rd and long. Let's go for no, man. Give him a chip. Give him help, bro. You don't put Mike on Isaiah Thomas and be like, Mike, you got him full court, bro, by yourself.
Yeah, it just didn't feel like, and it feels like if that's why, like, oh, Jan, took another sack. It's like sometimes he's just not getting no help, whether from the play calling, the routes. Guys were getting clamped up again today. It's just, it's a lot. Now, Geno's sack rate is actually pretty low, but it feels big because they just never move the chains on 3rd down. So every time he takes a sack, it's like, oh my God, here it goes again. It's like watching Russ. Yeah, it feels bigger than it actually is, at least statistically. But yeah, man, there's a lot of issues on 3rd down with this team.
You ain't lying. All right, this next one comes from Logan. With 1B. I'm gonna go with Weber. Logan Weber. Does this loss warrant a change at quarterback?
That play was at 3rd and 4. It was in the 3rd quarter, by the way.
Okay.
But anyway, I just wanted to get that cleared up while I was looking. I really don't think so. I know everyone's really hard on Geno, and we're critical of him as well. But we're also, and maybe it's because we just watched the film a lot too. It is not just.
I be seeing everything, bro.
It is not. Look, man, I like Drew Lock. I think he's got some talent. I don't think you can, in good faith, put him out there with the circumstances around these guys, with guys not knowing what's going on, guys not winning one-on-ones, guys not being able to block, the run game not popping on early downs, and expect him to be better. I just don't think you can in good faith do that, because then he'll go out there and not be better. It'll look like Drew just stinks. But really, that's just not. That would be unfair to him. Now, maybe you could do it. I mean, while you still feel like you can win a division and compete, they won't do that. But I think whether they lose the Dallas game, the Niners again, I just don't feel like you're going to put him in there and he's going to look better. Like, at this point, it's probably in Drew's best interest to not play. So the mystery of, like, whether he still could be something is still there when he hits free agency. Because if you put him out there, he's not. It's not going to look good. It's not going to look better. I can promise you guys that. You guys saw it in the Rams game. That it's going to look like that again, particularly if you do it against Dallas or Philly or San Fran or even the Steelers later in the year. So, no, I do not think this is going to warrant a QB change because I don't think it's obvious enough that that's the only guy who's messing up. No.
This next one comes from Big Pete. Is Waldron or Geno more on the hot seat?
That's a good question. I do think that I'll probably go with Shane because, again, it just seems like they have some stuff wrong that is coming from the top. It's like, how does everyone not know how to, it goes back to a quote that Jordan Brooks gave earlier in the year. He said, "You get what you emphasize." And he was talking about their run defense being better, I think. I forget what he was exactly talking about. It was definitely the defense. And I remember thinking, you're right. And whatever they're emphasizing on offense is not working. Like, I feel like the only thing that's really changed from last year on offense is they're a much better yak team and a better screen team. They change, those kind of go hand in hand. But they're better at those two things. And they emphasized them all offseason. They worked on screens. They worked on screens every day in camp. Like, you saw it, we saw it. And it got emphasized and it got corrected. And that's about it. Everything else they're emphasizing every week. Like, oh yeah, we rep that. We emphasize that. It's got to be all 11. Guys got to execute. It feels like they're the guys who are in charge, not just Shane, by the way. There's a ton of offensive coaches on the staff who all play a big role in what the product looks like on game day, to be fair. I think everybody, whatever they're emphasizing, is just not getting home for whatever reason. I can't speak to each player and why they're not getting it on whatever given down by down basis. However, I can just watch the product and say, yeah, it's not hitting. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like if you live with like roommates or something like that, or you live with your significant other and they keep telling you like, hey, stop leaving the bathroom door open, or you got to do the dishes on Thursdays, or make sure you take the trash out if you put, any meats in it or something like that. And then you just keep not doing it. It's like, all right, well, man, what about this message is not hitting? Like, I need to tell you in another language. I need to yell at you. Like, how do I deliver this message? It's not getting there. And if I'm just not listening to you telling me to take the trash out on Fridays, y'all just shouldn't live together then. That's just kind of what it is. Whether that's your fault or not, maybe we just shouldn't live together. And that's kind of the analogy that it feels like when you talk about this marriage of player talent and the voices that they're hearing. Again, not just Shane. They have a lot of voices that they're listening to, and it just doesn't seem like whatever they're emphasizing is not getting through.
This next one comes from Aaron Gilbert. Compared to the rest of the league, how often doesn't the Seahawks run the football?
So excuse me. Where I like to pull this number from, you guys, if you read my stories on The Athletic, I pull things from True Media. For this particular thing, I love Ben Baldwin. Shout out to Ben. His site, rbsdm.com, which, of course, stands for Running Backs Don't Matter. I love it. So what he tracks is early down pass rate. And what they do is they take the first and second downs, how often a call drop back, when the win probability is like basically within striking distance for both teams. So it takes out like blowouts, takes out the final 2 minutes, where teams are just always throwing. So it's good. It gives you all the context you need, and it ranks each team. It's great. Great stuff. So right now, the Seahawks are 8th in neutral down pass rate. That means they throw the ball at the 8th highest rate. That's up there, boy. Oh, boy. Wow, that's higher than I thought. So you got teams at the bottom are like the Bears, Cardinals, Colts. There's a lot of run-heavy teams, bad teams in here too. So anyway, to answer the question, they're one of the more pass-heavy teams in the league. Now, that's in neutral situations too. So we're taking out third downs and stuff like that where most teams throw. Because of the way the team is structured, I'm not that mad at that because I mean, Chris, if you tell me they got Noah Fant, Colby Parkinson, Will Disley, JSN, first round pick, Tyler, DK, I might be like, maybe you should throw 58% of the time, which is what that number is in neutral situations, early down stuff. I'm not actually mad at that. The problem is it just is putting them right now, their execution altogether is putting them in like third in a million. And now they're the worst third down team in the league. Then ain't the Jets or the Raiders or something like that, or the Giants and the Jets. Like, I don't think the number is bad. I think the third down number is the more problematic issue. And I don't think just naturally running it more is going to fix that. They got to be better at it, too. There was a lot of 2-yard, 1-yard, no gain runs today, too. That ain't going to get you nowhere. Most people are going to call a pass on 2nd and 8 if you only got 2 yards on your first down run.
I heard that. This next one comes from Tyler Purcell. Why does DK have trouble with the hands?
It's interesting. And I don't know if I mentioned this on the show before, but someone in the league wasn't a player, but they're just, they're in the league. I forget which game it was. It was earlier. Russ was still the quarterback. That's how early it was. And it was just like, Mike, it was one of those, how somebody tells you to ask something, but they already know the answer. They was like, Mike, I want you to ask DK why he wears a dark visor to catch a brown ball at night. This was one of them games. He had a bunch of drops on national TV. I forget which game. Maybe against like the Eagles, I think, or something like that on Monday night. He ended up having a really good game. That was why I was just like, man, you bugging, ha ha. But then I was like, dang, he do be having a lot of drops. He has a lot of drops in general, but it does seem like at night they come up. I don't know if that's the actual issue, but it probably doesn't help. I'm sure. I don't know how their visors look, but I probably wouldn't go with that. It kind of reminds me of, I know this is not exactly the same, but like I'm like one of them people that wear like sunglasses in the club. So like, and then Chris has seen me do it. I did it in Vegas like last year when we went. And Chris, it looked fly. It looked super fly. People thought I was in it to perform. It looked dope. And I couldn't see a damn thing. People saying what up to me. I'm like, I don't know who this is. People asked to take pictures with me. I'm like, all right, I hope this is who and I'm seeing the pictures later. I'm like, oh, that was you. And I just couldn't, I couldn't see nothing. But it looked cool. And that's what I kind of think of. Now, I'd have to ask DK if that's the issue. I don't know if he would even say, but and he's not the only person that has drop issues. I actually think Jackson leads the team in drops, believe it or not, right now. But I do now every time he has drops on national TV, I bring that whole story up to say that is what I think of. I think of him basically wearing sunglasses in the club. It looks fly as hell. But then when you drop the ball, but when you can't on primetime, and it's so bad in primetime because it's in slow-mo.
Oh.
I don't know if they showed a slow-mo of the one he dropped today.
Oh, they did, Mike. They did.
It looks so bad.
The one, the out route or the
it was
curl?
after the out route. The one,
the
the curl. Did they
route.
show that in slow-mo?
Unfortunately, they did. And you know what Chris Collinsworth said? I think Charvarius Ward is in DK's head. I said, oh, damn.
That's rough.
Not that one. Not that one. How about rough. DK just dropped it? Ain't nobody in his head.
The slow-mos make everything so much worse. I haven't seen the slow-mo of that yet, but I actually didn't even know he dropped the out route until you texted. You said he dropped it. Then I watched it again. So did they show a slow-mo of that as well?
Yeah. They showed slow-mo of both his drops. And the first drop was the second pass, was the first pass of the second play of the game. Geno throws a just dart. Yeah, I know the defender was there, but defender missed the play. DK, both hands just, and he couldn't bring it in. So it's unfortunate.
Yeah, that's tough. And then I believe after the curl drop is when when Jackson makes the one-hander. Then it's like, dang, the rookie's doing that. I don't know if the dark visor thing even matters, but now because of that person sent me that text years ago, it's all I think about now whenever he has a drop on national TV. It's like polluting my mind.
You might have to pop that question, G.
Nah. I don't have that type of relationship where DK would tell me that answer. If that did matter, he'd probably just stop talking to me.
You know what? Don't ask.
It's just not worth that for my job.
Bingo.
If the star receiver just freezes me out, then that would be just too much of a headache to deal with professionally. I'll be honest about that one.
1,000% understand that. This next one comes from Colin Cogan. Seahawks are averaging 17 points since the bye. That's 26 in the league. That schedule, though, makes 6-8 a huge possibility. What changes should fans expect to be made offensively to be a contender in 2024?
The only thing that I feel like, well, in 2024, so two-parter. In the short term, I bet you're going to see a lot more of trying to commit to the run. I feel like that's kind of Pete Carroll's default setting when things aren't working. It's like, let's run it more. I just feel like when in doubt, he's like running more, which is not like the worst thing, but you also have to run it better. In 2024, though, I really feel like just like how they looked at their defensive line and said, we have to just overhaul this whole thing. I feel like they got to make that same commitment on the O line. Like you got to invest in another right tackle, not because Abe's bad, but when you have lingering knee issues, you just can't. I mean, you can't count on that for a whole 17-game season plus every year. That's just tough. That'd be unfair to even Abe, I think. So I feel like you got to make some heavy commitments there. I feel like you're all right with Charles. Even if you want to sign D-Lou, re-sign D-Lou, that's fine. Like, just invest. I feel like some teams, you see teams go out and they'll buy the linemen or use their high picks on linemen. I feel like they got to start. That's what it's got to be. The investments that they made on defense this last offseason, they got to make a similar investment up front. Go into a game where it's very clear you are better than them up front. I don't know how many games I feel like that's been the case going in. Regardless of what happens that day, going in, it feels more like, dang, how are the Seahawks going to handle such and such? Instead of like when the teams play the Eagles or when teams play the Chiefs, maybe not this Chiefs O-line, but previous Chiefs O-lines, or even when teams play Cleveland's O-line or some other O-lines, Dallas's O-line, Detroit's O-line. When teams play them, it's more like, how are teams going to get by Penei Sewell? How are teams going to get by Trent Williams? How are teams, you know what I'm saying? Get by Lane Johnson and whichever Kelsey brother the Eagles got. Like, that's what, you know what I'm saying? That's what the Seahawks need to be. They're not at that point quite yet. And I feel like that's where the investment needs to be on offense to get things changed.
This next one comes from Lil Mama. Is the team capable of moving towards decent gameplay, or is it the type of football fans will be watching for the rest of the season?
I actually really do like this question too, because it forces me to kind of say out loud, Chris, what I feel like everyone knows, but it can feel like that's not the case. The Seahawks are very rarely outmatched from a talent perspective each week. Like, Chris, how many teams are like, just when both rosters are generally healthy, like just clearly like, oh, that team is more talented than the Seahawks? It can't be that many. Like, let's go just NFC. It can't be that many.
So Eagles, Niners, maybe the Cowboys. So I would say 2 teams for sure, and then maybe the Cowboys.
I'd probably agree. I don't like. Let's look at this on defense. Let's look just at the Niners game. I got the roster in front of me. I do. The Niners defense today had. Let me see. I got to flip this over. Had Chase Young, Eric Armstead, Javon Hargrave, Bosa, Fred, Drake, Travarius, Lenore, Gibson, and Noah Funga. And that's largely their guys, right? So you got like a couple all-pro dudes, some Pro Bowlers here, some young dudes, some pretty solid guys, right? The Seahawks defense is damn near the same thing. You got Leonard Williams, really good player. Jaron Reed, really solid, consistent player. Draymond Jones, really solid player. Bobby Wagner, multi-time all-pro guy. Boye Mafe, like a borderline Pro Bowl guy this year. Spoon, going to be right there for Defensive Rookie of the Year. Reek, Pro Bowler. Quandre, Pro Bowler. Jamal, All-Pro and Pro Bowler. You know what I'm saying? Like, from a talent perspective, and that's not to mention guys like Trey Brown, right? Who's like a solid dude, very similar to like a Travarius Ward. It's just the Niners have this vaunted defense when on paper they match up okay. Now on offense, they got a better O-line, but you got Debo, you got Ayuk, you got George Kittle, and you got
CMC.
Without Ken Walker, that's a dip. But then you got DK Tyler JSN in a really good tight end room. Now, if you feel like the Niners are better, it's not a huge mismatch. The Eagles, you could make similar cases, except for the Eagles front, which does matter. But like, yeah, I'm with you, man. I don't go into many of these games, not even the Ravens game. I didn't even go into the Ravens game thinking that. That
They
like,
drop
oh
hella
man,
passes over there.
yeah, it's like, yeah, the Ravens, man, look, when the Ravens have a bad game, you go over to Ravens Twitter, it looks just like Seahawks Twitter. They be hot. They be ready to fire their OC and everything. But the point is, I don't, from a talent standpoint, these are very talented players. So I feel like there's always potential that they're just right there down to the wire with any of the good teams. That ain't the Niners. But I just feel like because of the talent, if the talent shows up, they can hang with some of these really good teams.
This next one comes from Wendell Mania. Where's the accountability at every level of the organization? Each week, see the same junk red zone offense, undisciplined penalties, and an organization that hasn't evolved their game plan since 2013.
You said the name of this question asker was Wendell.
Wendell Mania. Yep.
Yo, Wendell is fed up. Like the tone of that question was kind of serious. Hey, Wendell, he's had enough. He said he ain't changed nothing since he won the Super Bowl.
He's done.
No, I hear you, man. No, yeah, he's fed up. Yeah, Wendell is speaking for a lot of Seahawks fans today. Like, yo, man, what's up? Who firing? Who get fired? No, I hear you.
Pretty much.
No, I hear you. Chris, I don't have a good answer for that. But it does remind me of a conversation we had a couple years ago where Pete Carroll, Bill Belichick, Ron Rivera to a lesser extent, Mike Tomlin as well, John Harbaugh as well, maybe to a little bit lesser extent. These are guys who have a lot of power in their organizations. And when you get a lot of power because you've won a lot of games, you've established a good culture, you do wonder how many people there are in the building who can tell you when your poop stink, right? And we brought that up with Pete. I think I asked Pete that a couple years ago, and he was like, "Yeah, Tater, my sons." And I don't even think Tater was on the staff at the time, and he had two sons on the staff. One of them's not on the staff no more. But the essence was that's like, okay, that's too much, or that's not enough. That's two guys who are your kids, and one guy who's not even here. Is like, and now Tater's back. But the point being, when you talk about top-down accountability, I have heard from people in the league about that being an issue that people have grumbled about, whether it's fair or not. Wendell is not the only person who's been fed up about that. I don't know. I don't have a good answer for like, where is it? I mean, I'm not in those conversations, but it is something worth. Maybe I need to try to get in those conversations because when you do have a team that seems to have hit a ceiling, which the Seahawks have hit. How long has it been since they made a title game? What, 2014?
So
Yeah, the
going
Packers
on
game.
11 years then?
Let's
10,
count it out.
9 years? My bad.
Let's do the Sesame Street. 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. That's 8 years. Assuming they don't make it this year. They could. But
Stop it.
I have to say that. I have to
No,
say
you
that.
don't.
You're right. I don't. You're right. I don't. But assuming they don't, you're right. That'll be 9 years. It is fair to ask that. I think teams like the Steelers and the Ravens probably ask similar questions because their coaches have been there forever too. They've won Super Bowls and they sniffed another one in however many years. I don't know each one for both teams, the drought, that is. But yeah, it is fair to wonder that because that is, if you feel like you've hit this ceiling of maybe getting to the second round, at what point do you change that? I don't know. Maybe this is that year. It doesn't feel like it would be, but man, with more losses like this, where you're not even getting to the, like, it doesn't even look like this is a playoff team, maybe it does get to that point.
This next one is a follow-up. Chris Leeper again. Do you think it's better if the Seahawks miss the postseason this year?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because the good thing is that I've at least heard, never actually talked to her about this. What I've heard about Jody Allen is she can assess the process and not get fooled per se by the results. Like if they were to like fluke their way I won't say flipped away to the Super Bowl. That's too extreme, but I feel like she can look at the situation and not get fooled by, oh, they made the playoffs, so everything's fine. If it's not fine, like if they were to get to the playoffs as the 7 seed, go to Detroit, get their boots smoked, she would not be like, oh, we made the playoffs again. We're doing okay. Like she would assess what needs to be assessed. I don't know. I can't guarantee that she would make changes, but I don't think she would just be fooled by a positive-ish result, if that makes sense. So no, I don't think it's better if they just bottom out, because I don't think bottoming out will make it easier for Jody to make the changes that you guys want per se. She'll make them like if they need to be made. Now, should they just suck? Well, no, that's terrible. Because then you got a losing culture and stuff like that. That's you want to still make the playoffs, but yeah, I never think it's bad. There's positives in losing. It's not like having a high pick guarantees much. Shoot, they just had a top 5 pick. Look where we are now, right? So it's not like losing is going to get them any more cap space. That doesn't happen, So yeah, you don't want to get the losing culture. You're not losing to get like a better quarterback, So yeah, no. Win as many games as you can, then evaluate at the end of the season and trust that your owner will make the decisions necessary to get the team to where it needs to be.
This next one comes from Cade Ashby. We all know how awful that game was. So let's look at some positivity. Who got everyone on track at halftime, Mike? Who do you think it was?
My guess would be Bobby. I don't know for sure. I didn't get those answers this week. You guys will see from any stories that people write after the game today, we ain't getting no good quotes. Ain't nobody saying nothing good. Everybody was like, we lost. We got to be better. We got to start faster. Not to say that those things are inaccurate. It just wasn't anything like super illuminating. My guess would be Bobby on D, coaches on D. I think Pete spoke to the team like just general, like, hey, just be who you are. Be us. That first half wasn't us. Let's be us in the second half. I really, I need to figure this out. I don't know who that person is on offense. I don't know if it's Geno. I don't know if it's DK. I don't know if it's Tyler. I don't know if it's like a Jason Peters or what, Evan Brown, one of the coaches. But honestly, to be honest, I don't really think there's a ton of rah-rah stuff at these halftime or whatever moments. There is a little bit of that stuff, but when it's that egregious, guys just kind of know what time it is. Like everybody on defense knew, hey man, we got to tackle like today. And you actually saw it got better in the second half. And on offense, it was like, we need some first downs like today. And they got some. They got like 7 in the second half or something. Sometimes that stuff is so obvious, you don't need nobody to like slap you in the face and say, hey, win for the Gipper type stuff. So I don't know who it was on offense. I'll see if I can figure that out. But honestly, what I've heard is those speeches are kind of like overblown in like the media. Really, when it's bad, guys generally know it's bad and they got to tighten it.
This next one comes from Brian Alvarez. Will Bobby start getting pulled on third down passing situations?
No, I don't think so. I think the really tricky, beyond just them, Bobby not being like the issue there. I feel like when teams target Bobby or anybody in coverage, to be honest, it's on any type of down. Like you look at the first drive and the stuff they were throwing like towards Bobby, it was first down. Can't pull him off on first down. Can't pull him off on second down. He's also calling the plays. So the mechanics of that, if you only give one guy a helmet that has the speaker, it'd just be very hard to do that. The logistics of that would be hard. Even if they weren't hard, the team's not going to do that. I feel very confident about that. I feel very confident that wouldn't just like automatically make their third down defense better. I also don't think that he's like getting targeted a bunch on third down in that way. He blitzes a lot on third down anyway, or just sits right in the zones. Like he's generally fine. There was some stuff today that was tough, but I don't think it was like, oh, they're obviously passing. They're going to throw a 54. Like I said, it was first and second down, a lot of that stuff. So no, I think there's too much respect for him in the building. They think too highly of him in the building. He's actually playing good this year. Today was not really good for anybody, but it's like playing good this year. So no, I don't think that'll ever happen. I think what you could see happen is just using Jordan more. So maybe you just go nickel on third down instead of dime. But I don't think that we're going to get to a point where they're just pulling Bobby off the field on third down. No.
This next one comes from Brian Lindy. Am I crazy, or are the Seahawks playing off coverage and allowing a ton of easy crossers?
You're not crazy, but no, that's not really it. They play a lot of zone. What the Niners and the Rams are really good at, they do it in different ways. But what the Niners are particularly really good at is getting you on these crossers off of like motions and play actions. The Niners run a lot of like dig routes behind you, the Rams run that, and they do that off of motions too. But what the Niners do, they find the holes in your zones with their crossers. It's really good stuff. They also just have really good route runners. I don't know if they showed many Brandon Ayuk routes today. Listen, guys, he is special.
Yeah,
Is that Vince McMahon meme going on? Did they show the slow-mo of the touchdown?
I said that boy just ran a route on Spoon. That's tough. That's unfortunate.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I think he pushed off a little bit at the top, but man, just watch his feet. Damn the hands. Ayuk is real when it comes to that stuff. So I think it's like a perfect storm of stuff. Like the Seahawks run similar things, but it just doesn't look the same because they don't have the same type of yak dudes that the Niners have. No one does, by the way. The Niners are like by a lot the best yak team in the league, and they are like every year. So it's not just the Seahawks are the only team that doesn't have those horses. So no, it's not just a bunch of off coverage. They do play a lot of zone. That's not always off coverage, but to be clear, most teams in the league, their base coverage is zone. And the minute you start committing to a bunch of man is the minute the teams start running all over you. So you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, really.
This next one comes from Legion of Spoon. After 7 to 8 years of no progress, is it time for a change at head coach?
I lean towards no, but I feel like we're getting more and more where this is a valid question, Chris, because people are right. At what point do you just like, yo, man, we have a standard here. We want to get to this NFC title game. We want to, try to compete for a Super Bowl. And it hasn't even been close. It's not like they lost by a field goal in a divisional round a couple times, because then you can feel like you're close. They got to the divisional round and lost like 28 to, well, actually, that ended up being a one-score game. Like it was like 28 to 23. But it was one of those classic Seahawks games. They were down like 25 at some point or something like that. They were down like 21 to 3 at the half. It looked like this game, kind of. And it's the same thing, so I feel like that's a very valid question. I feel like if you're on the bandwagon of like, man, if we're just going to keep just switching up coaches and players only to get to the same place, why don't we change something else? I feel like that's totally fair. Totally fair. Again, I'm not there yet, but I do feel like it's fair. I'm going to put Chris on the spot here. Chris, where are you on that? On if they are just going to maybe sniff the divisional, be one and done more often than not. Where are you on like, hey, let's change up top?
I think you have to have a big plan ahead with that, because obviously, to your point, okay, we've gotten this far every year. Well, what's the next step? So if you bring in this coach, are you confident that you're getting to that next step? Is his message getting to the players the way you wanted to, and they win that divisional game to go to the Super Bowl? That would be my biggest thought, is if they do make a change, does that change immediately put you in the conversation to be divisional champ, representing for the Super Bowl? That's the conference champion, excuse me. That's where I am going with it. And that's a tough question, because how many coaches could come in right now and the Seahawks are immediately favorites based on nothing changes, just the head coach.
He would change the staff too, in theory. So you get new staff,
but how many new players are going to get? I mean, there's only so much movement. Like, how many quarterbacks are going to be available next season, right? That's a great question. Are they going to draft someone? What are they going to do in the D line? There's a lot to do there. With the Eagles, don't look like they're going to get any worse. The Niners don't look like they're going to get any worse. The Rams look like they could bounce back. I know you're not as high on them as I might be, but this NFC, the top teams, they're not going to just fall off a cliff unless there's some serious injuries, which that could happen. It's the NFL. You saw what happened to Kirk Cousins. not that he's elite, but when he's hitting on all cylinders and Justin Jefferson's playing and he's healthy, that's a tough team right there. Offensively, defensively is another story. I mean, Daniil Hunter's going crazy, getting sacks, but I don't watch a lot of their games, obviously. But I think it starts with how far are we going to go with this new head coach? Because honestly, I think Pete can get it done, but for whatever reason, the messages ain't following through. They're just not hitting where they want to hit, and they overhauled a lot of the things they wanted to improve at. As you mentioned, they got a Devin Witherspoon stud, and look where the Seahawks are at, 6-5. You know, the Eagles took Jalen Carter, and what are they? They lost one game this season. Now, how much of that is Jalen Carter being dominant? Probably not a lot. I haven't watched every single game of the Eagles, but you know what?
He's doing well, but he's not why they're 9-1. Yeah,
That's my point. Their team is stacked. Their team is good. They just added another piece of the puzzle to help the team get better. And that's the Seahawks are trying to find. They're trying to find that, I think to your point, Mike, that identity. I think if they really find who they really are offensively, I think defensively they know what they want to do. I think we can all see that. I'm going to bust you in the mouth all game and just play physical and get turnovers. That's what they want to do. They just want to tear you up. And if they can find out specifically what they want to do offensively, I think that changes everything. Because now they know what they want to do offensively. Defensively, they know what they want to do. It's a great marriage. Now, can they go out there and make it? Can they go out there and do it? That's what it comes down to. So I think they have to find who that guy is. I think it still is Pete, but I understand why people are asking, like, hey, it's been a while. What are we doing here?
it has been. It has been a while. Yeah. So no, it's a fair question.
I think this is pretty much it. I know he signed a new deal, but if let's say the next 2 years they don't get it done, I believe that third year, would be what he has one or two more years on his deal. I think they probably move on if this continues. Like if 2024 going to the Super Bowl or 2025 and they still are out in the first round or they lose to the Niners or something, I think it's okay, Pete. Appreciate you, man. But we'll see. This last one comes from Young Slick X. We got to show some love for Leonard Williams. He been balling since we got him. By the way, for Boye Mafe, he has a few nicknames. Nigerian Prince, Nigerian BMF, or BMF Soldier. Those are some of the names he gave us.
Oh, I honestly think I kind of just like BMF. I like that. I think I just like BMF. We have to decide what the F is.
Mafe. Boye Mafe. The M.
But I just I like the bad mother. Like it looks like that's what it is, and then you got BMF obviously blowing money fast. And then you got okay,
a lot.
And then you got the whole drug organization of BMF as well. You know what? I like that.
I do too.
There's our leader in the clubhouse. Just we're tweaking it a little bit, but yeah, I like BMF for yeah, kind of like how Doug Baldwin had ADB, Angry Doug Baldwin.
Yeah, that was rough. That was rough.
Yeah, he didn't. I don't think he really like that, but
I think couldn't blame him.
Yeah, no, I feel him on that. So yeah, I like that. I like that. Yeah, Leonard Williams is playing well. They got talent on defense, y'all.
You did just go through all of the players that
are talented. They gotta tackle. They gotta tackle the guys, man. Reek getting benched because he didn't tackle. It's come on. Oh, we do got the clip of that. Look at this. This is bad. This don't got nothing. This is what I was talking about with the attitude. This ain't nothing. This is why, Chris, I feel like people get where we're at with this though. Because you notice we didn't get a bunch of Clint Hurt questions today. Because they know Clint put his guys in position to make plays, and they were doing stuff like this. This is not who the Seahawks want to be. That's not their swag. This is not their attitude. That's not their sending a statement with the physicality. This is also this is the play that this is where I think they drew the straw with Reek today. Fair or not, but yeah, this they got talent. They got talent on D, man. You guys can't see what we're showing the play where Juwan Jennings basically just drags Spoon for a couple yards. Trey Brown and Tariq come in and run into each other. Quandre flies in, doesn't get a hand on him.
They don't run into each other. Tariq Woolen just pushes Trey Brown in the back.
Yeah. And but even though Trey comes in there trying to like punch, he comes in there trying to throw a punch pretty much instead of
I
like
don't. Yeah, I
trying
don't
to.
think the Seahawks are saying, "Hey guys, let's throw punches for tackles."
Yeah, I mean, it just that's yeah. I feel like the mess. This was bad. This was it was a bad loss, man. That what you said. That was our last question, right? Was the last one?
Yeah, man, that's it.
Yeah, that was a bad day. It was a bad Thanksgiving. Bad Thanksgiving, man. They can bounce back. They can, but it just feels like the more these losses pile up and the more they start to lose in similar fashion, and have the same recurring issues with the same messaging after the games. We got to be better. We got to look ourselves in the mirror. We got more games left. It's like, well, eventually there ain't gonna be no more mirrors to look into, and ain't gonna be no more games left. You know what I'm saying? It's just we're getting to there ain't but so many games left, and they're not supposed to panic because that's how they are. With us externally, we can look at this objectively and say this is a problem, and it's not just this game. Some very systemic issues. The Niners are a very good example. They were a very good measuring stick for the Seahawks. You had a year in essence to get right so you don't get beat down by the 49ers.
Mm.
And came here on the short week at home, and it looked exactly like variations of all the other losses. And that's like Geno said this week, unacceptable. And I do like what Geno said. He said, we got to take this personal. He said, we can't let them just keep beating us like this. And he's right. They got to take it personal. I'm glad he feels that way. I don't know who else does, but it does have to be personal at some point to just decide, I'm not about to let the Niners beat me again. If everybody decides that, they can probably beat them in a couple weeks.
Well, we gonna see because they got the Cowboys who are playing some good football right now. They destroyed the Commanders on Thursday Night Football, so that's not a sight that you want to see. The Seahawks just played the Commanders, and how'd that go? Down to the wire. So sorry not to, give you guys, listeners, fans, a little taste of reality, but it
Oh,
ain't looking good.
they already in a bad mood without us.
That is true. So we appreciate all the love and support. Like I said, we set a record for Twitter questions on this Thursday night loss. It's now Friday early in the morning, but from Mike, from Christopher, to all y'all, we appreciate it. We will catch you guys some point next week, and we'll have
Yeah,
some news.
we'll bring the standout plays back this week. Let's do some
Yes,
plays. Let's do
short
some plays
week.
this week.
We was like, yo, we ain't got no time. We gotta watch film. Mike gotta do his
Yeah.
stories. But we'll come back with the film review from this game. We're gonna find some plays. Yeah, standout
We
plays
will.
for the week. But Mike, anything you want to add before we get out of here?
Appreciate the level of support on our YouTube channel, like Chris alluded to, and I've been alluding to at the end of each show recently. We will have an announcement. It should be on Monday about the show. Nothing changes on y'all part. Stay subscribed wherever you're subscribed, and you'll still get the show. But it's coming soon. On that note, we will catch you guys early next week. Have a good holiday. Have a good weekend. Stay safe out there. Peace.